Ah, the DIY air whips. They sure were fun to use, and did a good job of cleaning the HVAC ducts as well as the dryer vent ducting. Just had to choose the right whip for each job. Now I want to build some that have even more cleaning power to help remove the residue of dirt and whatever else is stuck onto the inside of this ductwork. Attaching some kind of brush to the end of each whip seemed like a good idea, so I gave it a try. And it worked. So here in part 7 of my do-it-yourself air duct cleaning tools series, I'm going to show how a couple of those more aggressive air whips were made. Actually, all I need to do is modify a couple of whips that were built during part 2 of the series. There should be a link to that video in the description below. I'm going to use a brush that's fairly stiff. These brushes are designed for cleaning the inside of tubing and have bristles all the way around. I chose the one with the longest and stiffest bristles. Steel, probably. Not sure what length to cut it to, so I try 3/4 of an inch. Okay, now I need to attach it somehow to the end of an air whip hose. Cable ties seemed like a possible answer, and I gave it a shot. But as we'll see here in a bit, there's a much better way. The brush for the second hose is cut longer than the first. It's about 1.25 inches long. Figured it would be an interesting experiment. The cable ties needed to be tightened to a point where they would squeeze the soft whip tubes enough to restrict the airflow needed to propel the whip. Another issue was that the bristles kept falling out of the brushes once they were cut. So to fix the problem of the bristles falling out, I use hot glue, which then gives me an idea about how to attach the brushes to the hoses. Basically, I just use hot glue rings around the tubes to secure the brushes. The hot glue held the bristles in place and was an easy way to attach the brushes to the whip hoses. Off come the cable ties, then some extra glue is removed to help save weight. Time for a bench test. Well, it works okay on the bench, so I hook it up to the leader hose that was made during part 4 of the series and head on over to the house. The air pressure is set to 80 psi and the whip is inserted into the ductwork. Then I turn on the air. My homemade duct vac was left off temporarily while testing this whip to make it easier to see the dirt that swept up into the air, but it's turned on immediately afterwards. As we can see, both of the whips are working, however they seem a bit weak to me. Let's try 90 psi. It comes on strong at first, but then kind of runs out of steam. The 1/4 inch hoses I'm using to supply the air from the compressor may be too small for this whip. I try 100 psi next and am pleasantly surprised, as it works quite well. The brushes are whipping around pretty good and they're getting down into the corners, which I really like to see. The rotary brushes from parts 5 and 6 of this series had trouble cleaning out those corners. However, those rotary brushes did a better job of removing the gunk and rust that was stuck onto the bottom of the duct here in this part of the house. It's below a bathroom, which is where I assume the water that rusted it came from. After a while, the wire brushes began to get bent over and less effective, and this led me to attempt making a brush tip from a 3/16 inch cable. A 4-inch long piece is cut and folded in half before gluing it together near the bend. Then I unravel the cable ends to fan out the bristles. Cable can be bent into a variety of different brushes. This one's going to get fanned out even more using a pair of pliers. These cable strands are a lot stiffer than the bristles on the previous brush, and should hold their shape much better. We'll find out in a minute. Off comes one of those old brushes and on goes the new. The new brush is oriented like so. I don't want any of the bristles in the way of the airstream that propels the whip hose, because that may slow it down some. Hot glue is used again, but other kinds of flexible glues could probably work. The brush may need to be tied on with string before using other kinds of glue, though. I go ahead and fan out the bristles a little bit more and then cut off any excess glue. The less the brushes weigh, the easier it will be for the air to move them. Alright, it looks good to me. Let's test it. That didn't go so well. Let's try it again. Seems to be whipping around okay, but the way the brush tips got stuck together concerned me. I went ahead and replaced the second brush tip, and back to the ductwork we go. Can't complain about what I'm seeing here. This air whip is brushing the inside of the duct very thoroughly, which is great to see because the whips have been fairly easy for me to use when cleaning the air ducts. There is one small issue though. As the pressure in my portable air compressor goes down, the whips begin to have trouble. You can see here how they stall briefly once in a while, but then the compressor kicked on and the problem went away. My 20-gallon compressor with a max pressure of 120 psi and a pump rate of 6.5 CFM was just barely enough to run this tool. However, I had to take 5-minute breaks every few minutes to let the air compressor cool down, which was kind of a drag. A larger unit with a higher pump rate would be more appropriate. Okay, let's see if I can get my new toy stuck inside this gnarly segment of the HVAC duct. It's trying to get stuck, but keeps wiggling loose. I'm pretty sure it can get snagged in places like this, although I wasn't able to snag it for very long during testing. Just something I need to keep in mind while operating the brush whip, even though I tried to make the brush tips without any hooks or loops to get caught on anything. Overall, I'd say this whip worked pretty well for cleaning the rectangle steel ductwork. Wonder how well it would work to clean this flexible plastic ducting. Probably a little too well. I'm sure it could damage this plastic ducting, so I need to make a less aggressive whip. This whip with the hoses further apart was made during part 2 of the series and is my favorite because it works the best. And for that reason, I don't want to modify it. But this older prototype I don't really care about. I'll use it instead. Gonna try some plastic tube brushes this time. Same basic idea as before, just need to find the right one. Even though I want a softer brush for the flex duct, it still needs to be stiff enough to do some real cleaning. Most of these are too soft in my opinion, but there were a couple that seemed about right. I tried the small one first. These brush tips will be cut about 1 inch long, and to help prevent the bristles from falling out like they did with the first brush, I'm going to go ahead and put some hot glue where the cuts will be. Then I cut them through the glue once it cools to get my little 1 inch brush tips. Attaching them to the duct whip hoses will be just like we did with the metal tube brushes. Then the excess glue is cut off. Remember, we don't want the tips to be any heavier than needed. After some testing, I felt like these brushes were too small, so they were replaced with some larger brush tips. One of those tips will be cut from this larger plastic tube brush. Looks like I mangled it somewhat, but it should be fine. I just glue it on the same as I did with the previous brush tips, being careful to cover any hooks or loops. Now, with the other tip to be replaced, I'm going to experiment with a different design using broom bristles. They were cut about 4 inches long and then folded in half to form a brush. Then some glue was added to lock them together in the desired shape. Actually, I did need to bend the bristles out a little more, but that was easy enough. Attached it to the duct whip hose with glue like the other brush tips, and I think it's ready to go. At 100 psi, both of the whips are pretty animated. They're 15 inches long, which I believe is enough to reach the highest point of that large flexible duct. But I bet they could whip around even better if the whip hoses were cut a bit shorter. Kinda like the steel brush whip, which is only about 11 inches long. Well, I'm happy with what I've seen so far. These little broom bristle brushes are so lightweight that another 1 or 2 could probably be glued onto the whip hose. Maybe even offset some from the other, and at different points on the tubing. I think I'll just keep this brush whip the way it is in the meantime. When the air pressure was below 100 psi, the steel brush tips would sometimes stick together or bind on the tennis ball. But as long as I keep the pressure at 100 psi and the 1/4 inch supply hose at 100 feet long or less, they do just fine. There was plenty of airflow for a whip with only one hose. Gluing multiple brushes to a whip with one hose may be a better option. I'll experiment with that in another video. Remember, a duct vac like we made during part 3 needs to be used with these brush whips to vacuum out the dust and debris they sweep up. A stiff leader hose like we made in part 4 sure helps when pushing the air whip through the ductwork. I was excited to play with my new toys inside the ducting when it suddenly dawned on me that I'd made a silly mistake. Forgot to check and clean the HVAC unit. This should have been done before cleaning the supply side ductwork. But the ductwork was so dirty that I kind of focused on it with tunnel vision. Now I need to focus on this thing. The furnace closet is basically the air return, so I'll need to clean it first. The blower on the HVAC unit is extremely dirty. And I'm sure the air conditioner coils are nasty also. I guess I should probably restart the cleaning process of the whole heating and air system, beginning with the return side and ending with the supply side ductwork. I think I have most of the DIY duct cleaning equipment I'll need. Might need to make a custom brush attachment for the shop vac when cleaning the AC coils, but I don't know. We'll see. This system wouldn't be as dirty if the filter section was more effective. It's not sealed properly. In part 8 of my do-it-yourself duct cleaning tools series, I'd like to fix that problem. I'm not sure what tools I'll use for that, but we'll find out next time. Thanks for watching.